She whispered it so quietly I almost didn't hear her. "Can you pretend to be my son's dad?" A desperate plea from a single mom CEO, a stranger about to step into a child's life, and a choice that would change all of their lives forever. Before we dive in, tell us in the comments where in the world you are watching. Lila Grant walked into the softly lit cafe, her tailored blazer brushing against her sleek skirt, perfectly polished for her board meeting later that afternoon. But her mind was elsewhere. She tugged at Ethan's tiny hand, her 5-year-old son bouncing slightly with excitement as he darted toward the display of colorful pastries. Lila had built a career that many envied. She was the CEO of a successful tech startup, commanding meetings and investors with poise. But motherhood had been far more challenging than any corporate crisis. And today, she needed a brief respite from the constant juggling act. A quiet space where Ethan could just be a child, even if only for an hour. Ethan's laughter rang through the cafe, a bright, musical sound that drew a few glances from other patrons. "Mommy, look! The chocolate croissant is bigger than my head," he exclaimed, pointing at the pastry display. Lila smiled, her heart softening for a fleeting moment. This was why she pushed herself, why the endless meetings and sleepless nights mattered, because moments like these were worth it. But just as she leaned down to pick Ethan up, her phone buzzed insistently in her bag. She ignored it, silently promising herself she would handle work later. Today, it was just her and Ethan. Behind the counter, Ryan Parker was wiping down the espresso machine, his mind elsewhere too. He had been working at the cafe for a few years, enjoying the rhythm of the job, the easy conversations, the small pockets of human connection. Life outside the cafe was more complicated. Bills, family obligations, and a sense of lingering loneliness. But here, he could breathe. When he looked up and saw Ethan's excitement, he couldn't help but smile. There was something pure about a child who laughed without restraint, who saw the world as full of wonder. Ethan's elbow nudged his chocolate milk glass, sending it tipping toward the edge of the table. "Oh no!" Lila lunged, catching the glass just in time, her coffee-stained skirt momentarily forgotten. Ryan noticed her flustered expression, and something clicked in him, a mixture of amusement and empathy. He walked over with a calm presence. "Here, I've got this," he said, steadying the glass and flashing a warm, reassuring smile. Lila gave a tight nod, grateful for the unspoken assistance. "Thanks," she whispered, her voice low, almost hesitant. "It's been one of those mornings." Ryan raised an eyebrow, sensing there was more beneath her polished exterior than she let on. "Do you need a hand with anything else?" he asked lightly, not wanting to pry, but genuinely curious. Lila hesitated, then did something she hadn't done in years. She allowed herself to be vulnerable, even if just a little. Her eyes darted to the table where Ethan sat, humming to himself as he examined a cookie he had just stolen from the display. The cafe was full of potential judgment, strangers whose eyes weighed on her more heavily than she liked to admit. And in that split second, she made an impulsive, desperate request. Can you pretend to be my son's dad?" she whispered, barely audible. "Just for a minute, please." Ryan blinked, taken aback. The words hung in the air like a fragile thread, absurd and impossible, yet tinged with urgency and sincerity. He opened his mouth to respond, but found no suitable words. He stammered, unsure how to navigate this strange, intimate plea. Then he noticed Ethan looking up at him expectantly, eyes wide with innocence and trust. Something stirred inside Ryan, protective instincts, a strange warmth, a curiosity about this small boy and the woman who clearly loved him fiercely. Finally, he nodded. "All right," he said softly. "I'll play along." For a few minutes, Ryan crouched slightly, keeping pace with Ethan's energy. Lila watched, a mix of relief and nervousness washing over her. She had imagined awkwardness, judgment, or a flat refusal, but Ryan's calm, genuine engagement with Ethan offered a rare comfort. Ethan giggled as Ryan pretended to lift him onto his lap, laughing at an imaginary trick. Lila's heart thumped, a curious mixture of gratitude and something she hadn't felt in a long time, hope. Over the next hour, something subtle but profound, unfolded. Leela observed Ryan naturally stepping into this small, temporary role, guiding Ethan through his chocolate milk, listening to his endless questions, laughing at his jokes. It was effortless, yet it held an authenticity that resonated deeply with her. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel entirely alone. And Ethan, sensing the genuine kindness in Ryan, leaned closer, chattering away like the two had known each other much longer than mere minutes. The cafe's ambient hum, soft jazz in the background, and the smell of fresh pastries became the backdrop to a moment Lila would not soon forget. Her thoughts drifted to all the nights she had stayed awake, worrying if she was doing enough, if Ethan would ever feel like he had a complete family. And here was a man, a stranger even, effortlessly bridging the gap she felt she could not cross on her own. It was humbling, surreal, and terrifying all at once. As Ethan darted off to admire the dessert display again, Lila leaned over to Ryan. "I know it's strange. I don't even know your name. But thank you. Really, just being here for him, for me, it means more than I can say." Ryan smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile that lit his face. "I'm Ryan," he said, "and I think I understand." He glanced at Ethan, who was now attempting to balance a pastry on his head. Ryan shook his head, laughing quietly. "I've got to admit, this is one of the more unusual requests I've ever received. But I'm glad I can help." The day continued with small moments, Ethan sharing stories about his imaginary friends, Ryan offering gentle advice when Ethan's energy teetered toward chaos, and Lila simply watching, feeling a rare lightness in her chest. For a woman who controlled boardrooms with precision and authority, these moments of unguarded simplicity were nothing short of magical. And for Ryan, who had always felt a sense of distance from his own family, this unexpected connection awakened a longing he hadn't realized was there. By the time they left the cafe, Ryan had earned Ethan's reluctant admiration and tentative nickname of Mr. Cool Dad, whispered in a mixture of awe and mischief. Lila, holding Ethan's hand, walked beside Ryan, feeling a complex swirl of gratitude, curiosity, and cautious hope. Neither spoke much, both silently acknowledging the unusual bond forming between them. As they reached the door, Lila hesitated, the weight of her next words pressing against her chest. "Maybe we could do this again?" she said softly, unsure if she was inviting him into their lives or simply expressing gratitude. Ryan met her gaze, reading something in her eyes that went beyond temporary help or polite civility. "I think I'd like that," he replied, his voice calm but deliberate. In that simple exchange, the first threads of connection wove themselves quietly, irrevocably, into the fabric of all three of their lives. And as they stepped out into the sunlight, Ethan skipping ahead, Lila felt for the first time in a long while that perhaps she didn't have to do it all alone. Perhaps family could be found in unexpected places, and love could grow in ways that defied all plans. The following week, Lila found herself returning to the cafe, this time intentionally. She wasn't sure what she expected. Perhaps a fleeting moment of respite from her hectic schedule, or maybe just a chance to see Ethan happy in a world that wasn't ruled by deadlines and conference calls. But when she walked in and saw Ryan behind the counter, casually wiping down tables, a small sense of relief washed over her. His presence was reassuring, like a calm in the storm of her daily life. Ethan bolted ahead, laughing, and Ryan knelt down to greet him. "Hey, champ! Ready for another adventure?" he asked, ruffling Ethan's hair gently. The boy giggled and nodded vigorously. Leela paused by the door, watching them interact with something she hadn't expected, something tender, almost familial. It made her chest tighten. There was a warmth in Ryan's attention, a patience in his voice, that made her feel that perhaps life could be lighter, even for just a little while. They settled at a small table near the window. Ethan immediately began recounting tales from his imaginary kingdom, complete with dragons, treasure hunts, and unicorn advisors. Ryan listened intently, asking questions and laughing at just the right moments. Lila sipped her coffee, feeling a rare sense of normalcy, a tiny slice of life where she didn't have to juggle everything. She even found herself laughing along with Ryan, a sound she hadn't allowed herself in months. It was easy, effortless, yet underneath the ease, she felt the stirrings of something deeper. A trust forming slowly but unmistakably. The morning passed with playful chaos. Ethan's enthusiasm knew no bounds, spilling juice on the table, knocking over a cookie plate, and narrating imaginary battles that involved both Ryan and Lila as valiant knights. Each time, Ryan adapted seamlessly, guiding Ethan gently, sometimes lifting him onto his lap when the boy's energy overflowed. Lila watched, silently marveling at how natural he was with her son. There was no pretense, no act, just a man engaging wholeheartedly with a child. And the more she observed, the more she wondered why she had been trying to handle everything alone all these years. By mid-morning, the cafe began to fill with the usual hum of conversation and clinking cups. Lila's phone buzzed insistently in her bag, a reminder of emails waiting, meetings pending, and deadlines looming. She hesitated, fingers hovering over the screen, then glanced at Ethan. He was sitting cross-legged, wide-eyed and animated, recounting an epic tale where he had single-handedly defeated a dragon, while Ryan, the cool dad, cheered him on. For the first time, work could wait. She smiled and turned her attention back to them, absorbing the laughter and warmth that seemed to radiate from the simple interactions. As they were finishing their second round of chocolate milk, a challenge arose, one Lila hadn't anticipated. A reporter from a local magazine had been following the cafe for a human interest piece about community spaces. He walked over, a notebook in hand, and asked if he could take a quick photo of the father-son duo enjoying their morning. Lila's heart raced. She hadn't planned for this exposure, and the thought of explaining Ethan's situation publicly made her stomach churn. Before she could respond, Ryan stepped forward with an easy confidence she hadn't known he possessed. "Of course," he said, gently ruffling Ethan's hair. "We're happy to share a moment." Lila watched, momentarily stunned, as Ryan crouched to Ethan's level and whispered something that made the boy giggle uncontrollably. The reporter snapped a few photos, completely unaware of the delicate dynamics at play. Lila felt a surge of gratitude and something more, a strange comfort in knowing that Ryan was more than capable of handling the unexpected. Her heart softened further. Perhaps this pretend arrangement was more than a temporary fix. Perhaps it was a glimpse of something that could be real. Later that afternoon, after the cafe had quieted, Lila, Ryan, and Ethan found themselves walking through a nearby park. Ethan insisted on showing Ryan his secret treasure spots, leading him to trees, benches, and even a small pond. Lila trailed behind, watching the connection deepen, feeling both protective and intrigued. She hadn't expected to meet someone who could balance humor, patience, and kindness in such a natural way. Someone who could make her son feel safe and joyful with minimal effort. At one point, Ethan ran ahead, then stopped abruptly, eyes wide. "Mom, Dad, look!" He held up a small, sparkling stone he had found. Ryan knelt beside him, feigning astonishment, and exclaimed, "Wow, this must be magic! Only the bravest explorers can find stones like this." Ethan erupted in giggles, hugging the stone tightly. Lila smiled, feeling a rare peace. Watching Ryan interact with Ethan, she realized how much she had longed for someone to share this responsibility with, not just for practical help, but for genuine emotional support. As the sun began to dip, casting golden light over the park, Lila felt a moment of clarity. Life had always been about control for her, boards, investors, schedules, but this spontaneous connection, this unexpected family dynamic, reminded her that sometimes letting go of control could bring the most profound joys. Ryan's presence wasn't just a temporary solution. It was a reminder that human connection, trust, and kindness could heal exhaustion and fear, even for someone as fiercely independent as her. Later that evening, back at her apartment, Lila reflected on the day. Ryan had stayed longer than expected, helping Ethan with a small puzzle before bedtime. Ethan had called him Dad casually, without hesitation, leaving Lila both charmed and unsettled. Was she imagining the depth of her feelings, Or was this the start of something real? She sat quietly, letting the events of the day settle in her mind. Ryan's warmth had filled a void she hadn't fully acknowledged, the longing for partnership, for shared responsibility, for a man who could love her child without condition or expectation. The next morning, Ryan sent a brief text. "Ethan mentioned your dragon again this morning. He's already planning the next adventure. Do I get to be included?" Lila smiled at the message, heart swelling. This wasn't just a casual acquaintance anymore. It was becoming a part of her son's life, and possibly a part of her own. She replied with a short, careful note. "Yes, the bravest explorers are always welcome." Over the following weeks, this routine blossomed. Coffee visits became regular, small adventures in the park continued, and the bond between Ryan and Ethan strengthened. Lila began to see the subtle ways Ryan's presence changed things. Ethan slept better, laughed more, and even attempted new foods without coaxing. Lila felt lighter too, her stress tempered by the comfort of someone she could trust with her most precious responsibility. And though the word love had not yet been spoken, the undercurrent was undeniable. Ryan wasn't just helping her son. He was becoming a part of their lives, slowly transforming moments of pretend into a foundation of something real. Lila couldn't ignore the stirrings in her heart, the possibility that a man could be everything she had hoped for, and more, without the pretense of perfection. By the time summer arrived, the trio had become inseparable in little ways. Morning pastries, whispered jokes, and Ethan's endless stories. Lila realized she no longer felt like she was carrying the weight alone. In Ryan's quiet strength and gentle patience, she found not just support, but inspiration, a reminder that sometimes the family we choose can be just as meaningful, just as transformative as the one we are born into. Summer was settling into a golden warmth over the city, and Lila Grant found herself juggling her CEO responsibilities with a new, unexpected role, navigating the growing bond between Ethan and Ryan. Their relationship had evolved beyond casual meetings at the cafe or walks in the park. Ryan had become a fixture in their lives, a presence that brought laughter, patience, and stability. But with this closeness came vulnerability, the kind Lila had long avoided. Allowing someone else to influence her son's life, to see the softer, private side of her, was terrifying. Yet, she couldn't deny the quiet longing that grew each time Ryan smiled at Ethan's antics, or gently corrected a tantrum with humor rather than frustration. It was a Thursday afternoon when the real challenge arrived. Lila had been invited to a charity luncheon hosted by influential investors, a high-profile event where appearances mattered more than substance. She wanted to attend, but Ethan couldn't be left alone, and childcare options felt inadequate. Glancing around the bustling office, she made a decision that surprised even herself. She called Ryan. Could you come with us? Just for a few hours. I need someone my son can count on, she said, her voice betraying a hint of hesitation. Ryan's response was immediate. Of course, he said without a trace of complaint. Consider it a fatherly duty, he added with a grin, though Lila detected sincerity behind the humor. That evening, Lila and Ryan dressed Ethan in a crisp little shirt and khaki pants, the boy practically buzzing with excitement. For Lila, every step outside the office and into this new, unpredictable world was a delicate balance. She was trying to maintain control while simultaneously letting go. Ryan, however, made it feel effortless. He guided Ethan through small etiquette lessons, whispering jokes and silly instructions that had the boy giggling uncontrollably. At the event, the first test of their unspoken arrangement presented itself. A reporter from a local lifestyle magazine, who had photographed them at the cafe weeks prior, spotted the trio and began taking notes. Lila felt her chest tighten. She had hoped their cafe moment wouldn't follow them into high society. But Ryan acted instantly. He bent slightly to Ethan's level, whispered something that made the boy laugh, and casually linked arms with Lila. We're just a small family enjoying the afternoon, Ryan said smoothly to the reporter, his confidence anchoring the moment. Layla felt a rush of gratitude. This was no longer pretend. It was real, subtle, and comforting. As the luncheon progressed, Ethan's energy began to rise. He attempted to sneak cookies, ran between tables, and even tried to playfully convince a waiter that dessert should be delivered to his dad first. Ryan handled each situation with a combination of humor and gentle authority, never embarrassing Ethan, never making Layla feel out of control. Layla observed quietly, a mix of awe and relief washing over her. This man, who had started as a stranger in a cafe, now seemed intrinsically capable of anchoring her son and soothing her own anxieties. Later, as the event wound down, a quiet moment appeared, a balcony overlooking the city skyline. Layla stepped outside, with Ryan and Ethan trailing behind. Ethan immediately began pointing out imaginary spaceships in the sky, narrating a fantastical story of cosmic adventures. Layla couldn't help but smile at the boy's imagination. Ryan knelt beside Ethan, listening intently, asking questions, and encouraging the boy's creativity. Layla's heart thumped. This wasn't just help with childcare. It was a connection, deep and genuine, that neither she nor Ryan could have planned. "I don't know how you do it," Layla whispered quietly, as Ryan handed Ethan a small chocolate treat. "Balancing patience, humor, and everything else. You make it seem so easy." Ryan met her gaze, a shadow of vulnerability flickering across his face. "I'm not sure I know how I do it," he admitted softly. "But being with him, with both of you, it just feels right." The confession caught Layla off guard, stirring emotions she had long buried under professional ambition and self-reliance. The following week brought another challenge. Ethan's school announced a Father's Day event, something Layla had feared. Invitations required a parent to attend, and the thought of facing curious glances without a partner in her son's life made her stomach twist. She called Ryan, heart racing. Could you help me again? Just for this event?" she asked, her voice tight with nervous anticipation. Ryan didn't hesitate. "I'll be there," he said firmly. The sincerity in his voice quelled a storm of anxiety inside her. On the day of the event, Layla and Ryan arrived at the school together, Ethan practically bouncing in his small shoes. As they entered the classroom, other children ran to their parents, and Layla felt a pang of insecurity. Ryan bent down, whispered encouragement in Ethan's ear, and subtly guided him toward her. The boy's laughter rang clear, and for the first time Layla felt a surge of reassurance. Ryan's presence was steadying, anchoring both her son and her own fragile confidence. During the activities, Ryan engaged with Ethan authentically, participating in crafts, helping with small tasks, and encouraging the boy to express himself. Layla observed in quiet awe, a lump in her throat. This man, who had once been a stranger behind a cafe counter, was now demonstrating the depth of care and empathy she had longed to find in a partner and parental figure. Ethan was glowing, confident, joyful, and Layla realized something profound. Pretending had evolved into something deeper. Their bond was no longer a facade. Later that evening, after Ethan had fallen asleep, Layla and Ryan sat on her balcony, the city lights shimmering around them. "I didn't expect this," Layla said softly, her voice tinged with wonder and apprehension. "When I asked you to pretend, I never imagined it would feel this real." Ryan looked at her, eyes reflecting a quiet honesty. "I didn't either," he admitted. "But I can't deny how much I care for him, for you. It's not pretending anymore." The weight of his words settled between them, a delicate acknowledgement of feelings neither had fully named. Layla realized she was no longer simply relying on him for help. She was beginning to want him, not just as support, but as a partner, a part of the life she had built with Ethan. And Ryan, seeing the vulnerability in her eyes, felt the same. His protective instincts had grown into genuine affection, and the pretend fatherhood had blossomed into an undeniable bond. Over the following weeks, small moments cemented the connection. Morning routines, impromptu adventures, and quiet evenings became rituals that reinforced the trust and affection between them. Ethan thrived in this environment of warmth and stability, and Lila felt a lightness in her heart she hadn't known in years. She began to see a future where love, laughter, and family were not impossible, but attainable, where the line between pretending and reality blurred, leaving only honesty and connection. By the time autumn approached, the trio had become inseparable. Lila, Ryan, and Ethan shared small but profound routines: breakfast conversations, evening stories, weekend outings. Layla realized that her life had shifted in subtle yet monumental ways. She was no longer navigating motherhood alone. She had someone who could love her son as fiercely as she did, someone whose presence brought joy rather than pressure. And in the quiet moments when Ethan slept and the city lights glimmered below, Lila allowed herself to hope that this bond, this newfound family, could be permanent, and that the lines between pretend and real had already begun to vanish. Autumn had settled in with crisp air and golden leaves swirling across the city streets. For Lila Grant, the season mirrored the transformation in her own life. What had begun as a desperate plea for help in a cafe, asking a stranger to pretend to be her son's father, had evolved into something far deeper, more profound. Ryan Parker had become not just a companion to Ethan, but a part of their family, woven into their daily lives with patience, humor, and an authenticity Lila hadn't realized she had been longing for. The first hint of change came on a quiet Saturday morning. Ethan was building a fort in the living room, draping blankets and pillows over chairs, while Ryan crouched beside him, offering strategic advice in mock-serious tones. "Remember, General Ethan," Ryan said, pointing to the fortress, "defense is the key to victory, and make sure the cookies are within reach at all times." Ethan laughed, erupting into a fit of giggles that made Lila smile from the doorway. She'd never seen her son so completely at ease, so happy in the presence of another adult. Ryan had become more than a temporary solution. He was part of the rhythm of their lives. Later that afternoon, Lila received an invitation that stirred anxiety she hadn't felt in months. Ethan's school was hosting a special family day, celebrating parental involvement and support. Each child was supposed to participate with both parents present. Lila's heart sank. She had known this day would come, yet the thought of facing curious stares and questions from teachers and other parents was daunting. She hesitated, glancing at Ryan, who had been quietly observing her from the couch, a knowing look in his eyes. "We'll handle it," he said softly, offering a reassuring smile. "Together!" His presence steadied her more than any pep talk or preparation ever could. On the morning of the event, Lila dressed Ethan in his favorite outfit, a crisp blue shirt and tiny khakis, while Ryan arrived in a simple but polished ensemble that conveyed both confidence and warmth. Ethan's eyes lit up when he saw Ryan, and he ran to hug him, calling out, "Dad! Are you ready for Family Day?" Lila felt a mixture of amusement and heartache. This wasn't a charade anymore. Ethan had embraced Ryan fully, the pretend role evolving naturally into genuine affection. At the school, other families gathered, exchanging smiles and laughter, while Lila felt a knot of anxiety tighten in her chest. But Ryan guided Ethan with ease, holding his hand, whispering encouragement, and engaging with teachers and parents with effortless charm. When they were called to participate in a group activity, Ryan crouched to Ethan's level, explaining rules with humor and patience, while Lila watched, a sense of awe washing over her. This was the partnership she had always dreamed of, the family she hadn't dared to hope for. During a quiet moment, Lila pulled Ryan aside. "I never imagined this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "When I asked you to pretend, I never thought it would feel real." Ryan took her hand gently. "It didn't start that way," he admitted, "but sometimes the heart doesn't wait for perfect timing or ideal circumstances. It just knows." Lila felt tears prick her eyes, the weight of unspoken emotions finally surfacing. She had spent years controlling every aspect of her life, and now, in the soft autumn light, she realized that some of life's most profound moments came when she let go. The final activity of Family Day was a performance, where each child introduced their parents and shared something special about their family. Ethan bounded onto the small stage, his energy infectious, and with a gleaming smile he declared, "This is my mommy Lila, and this is my daddy Ryan. We make the best team ever." Lila's eyes filled with tears, watching Ryan bend down to whisper encouragement to Ethan, their shared joy radiating across the room. She realized then that what they had created was no longer pretend. It was a family, genuine in every sense that mattered. After the event, the trio walked home through streets littered with falling leaves. Ethan skipped ahead, narrating new adventures for the day, while Ryan and Lila fell into a comfortable rhythm behind him. Silence between them was no longer awkward. It was shared, reflective, and intimate. Lila realized she could finally breathe, knowing that Ryan was more than capable of loving her son and sharing her life. The weight she had carried alone for so long was finally lifted, replaced with hope and trust. That evening, after Ethan had gone to bed, Lila and Ryan sat on her balcony, a quiet glow surrounding them as the city lights twinkled below. "I need to tell you something," Lila began, her voice trembling slightly. "When I asked you to pretend, I thought it was just temporary. But the truth is, I've fallen in love with both of you. With Ethan, yes, but also with you. I didn't expect this, but I can't deny it." Ryan's expression softened, and he reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers with care. "I felt the same way," he admitted. "Pretending started as a favor, but it became real for me a long time ago. I love him, and I love you. I don't want this to be pretend anymore." The honesty hung in the air, delicate and powerful. Lila felt a rush of relief and exhilaration. She had feared vulnerability for so long, but now, in the warmth of Ryan's presence and the quiet strength of their bond, she understood that love wasn't about timing or circumstance. It was about showing up, consistently, with care and sincerity. In the following weeks, they began to embrace their new life fully. Morning breakfasts became family rituals, parks turned into playgrounds of laughter and storytelling, and evenings were filled with shared responsibilities and affection. Ryan taught Ethan the importance of patience and imagination, while Lila discovered the joy of letting someone else carry part of her burdens. Their lives intertwined so naturally that the line between pretend and real vanished entirely. Eventually, Lila and Ryan made it official, not with fanfare or ceremony, but through a quiet understanding that they were committed to one another. And to Ethan, they celebrated milestones together, big and small, from birthdays to first school plays, always prioritizing the happiness and well-being of their family unit. Ethan's laughter became the soundtrack of their lives, a reminder that love and connection were not dictated by biology, but by presence, dedication, and genuine care. One crisp evening, as they walked home through streets lined with amber leaves, Ethan ran ahead shouting, "Mom! Dad! Let's build the biggest fort ever!" Lila laughed. Ryan joined him, and for a moment time seemed to pause. In that laughter, in those small, perfect moments, Lila realized that their journey, from a desperate request in a cafe to a full-fledged family, was more beautiful than she could have imagined. Pretending had led them to truth, and love had blossomed in ways she never thought possible. And as the sun set over the city, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink, Lila understood something she had long forgotten, that family is not just about blood, titles, or perfection. It's about showing up, loving fiercely, embracing imperfections, and choosing one another every single day. In Ryan's unwavering support, Ethan's innocent joy, and her own heart opening to love, she had found the family she had always dreamed of, a family forged not by circumstance, but by choice, courage, and the simple, profound act of being present.